I'm a football analyst for the Osceola, and I am joined. Hello and welcome to the Osceola's First Impressions. A quick look at FSU's 38-3 win over Syracuse. I'm Pat Burnham. I'm joined as always by former FSU offensive lineman and Osceola football analyst Mark Salva. Mark, thanks for staying up with us. Listen, there are a ton of adjectives to describe what FSU did tonight. Dominant, efficient, complimentary, consistent, opportunistic. Listen, they all fit in some form or fashion. Again, the third straight win for Florida State, the third dominant win, a game that was certainly over by the third quarter, if not by halftime. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought was the game was over at the coin toss. Number one, when they chose to take the ball, and then my number one note is I will never take winning for granted. This is fun. It's fun to win dominantly, and the other number one thing I take away from this game is that the defense is really playing good. I don't care who the quarterback is. I don't care. I mean, to not give up a touchdown in 2 games, and honestly, they barely broke a sweat. I mean, the story of this game is the defense barely breaking a sweat, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they just absolutely dominated that game, and they had some good players. And I know the quarterback wasn't 100%. It was obvious he was gimpy, and he obviously wasn't very sharp. He hadn't practiced very much, and his throws were way off. But I don't care. Those guys were flying around. They're making tackles. They're making plays, dominating. I mean, I don't know how many 3 and outs they started the game with. It must have been 3 or 4, I think, right?
Yeah, it was. And listen, they forced 6 for the game, and Syracuse had 10 drives or 4 plays or less, and including 6 3 and out. So yes, listen, we always start with the offense. I'm glad you started with the defense. I think there's some irony in the fact that Jared Verse led the team in tackles. He had 4 tackles. Obviously didn't need him much in the second half. 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for a loss. This is where Florida State discovered Jared was in a game last year at Syracuse when he was at Albany University. So something kind of comes full circle there. But listen, they had 82% of their rush offense went through Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader. Tucker 14 for 52. We talked about the necessity of Florida State to stop number 6, number 34, and number 19, and that's exactly what they did. Schrader finished 6 of 15 throwing the ball. He did not run the ball much at all. Obviously, as you mentioned, limited by that injury, but still, you had your best quarterback in the game. 10 rushes for him, -2 yards, and then of course the Tucker and Gadsden made up 50% of their passing offense. And again, Florida State totally took Aronde Gadsden the second out of the game, 1 catch for 29 yards. Tucker had 1 catch for a negative gain, so no gain. Just talk about what they did to stymie those 3 players, Mark.
Well, it started out, and I loved it. I think the first long yardage passing situation, they brought a 7-man blitz and got a free run on Schrader, knocked him down. My deal was get him uncomfortable early. He hasn't practiced very much. He was gimpy. We had to shake him up early and able to do that. The other thing was just guys getting off blocks and playing fast. I mean, there's a couple of those runs early with Tucker where he would try to bounce it or cut it back and try to get around the defense. And obviously that's worked for him in the past, and they're usually pretty successful with it because they weren't going to run up the middle. And, our guys just ran him down. I mean, he couldn't get away. Verse, Jamie Robinson, Shane Brown one time, a couple times. I mean, guys are just playing fast, making plays. Kalen DeLoach ran him down. I mean, I know the guy's a good back, but we made him look really, really average. And that's a testament to the plan the defense had going in, because I don't think we did anything really special. We're blitzing a little bit more than we have in the past. But guys are just really playing better fundamental football. They're getting off blocks. Gap integrity is really good. There's not a lot of misalignments. Very rarely do I see guys scrambling around trying to get lined up anymore. So that's a testament to our defensive coaches and the planning and the kids working and understanding what it is they're trying to do.
Yeah, and well, you talk. Listen, they could not block Florida State. Syracuse had at least 5 holding penalties against Florida State. At least 4 of those were accepted. There may have been more. I lost track, but they absolutely could not block them. Probably the turning point in the game for me, Mark, was in the first half when Syracuse made the game 14-3. They got the ball inside FSU's territory after a fumble. They got it on it was PN10 on the +22. A big tackle for a loss by Farmer for -11 yards. A sack, and I cannot remember who made the sack. It might have been Jared Verse. That knocked them back to try to attempt a 53-yard field goal, which they missed. And really, after that, the route was on. 2 series later, FSU gets the benefit of a short field, which Florida State was opportunistic, and they took advantage of their short field opportunities. They started with the ball, the 22, after a punt return and a face mask penalty. 1 play, 24 yards. So to me, that was kind of the turning point in the game.
Yeah,
got that lead to 21-3. Just talk about what you thought was your turning point there in the first half. That really
definitely the series where we made them kick that long field goal and miss. That was one of it. But I wrote this down for you because I know how big you are on complimentary football.
Yes, I do like it.
Right? So punting, we punt the ball and they fair catch it at the 5-yard line. -5 yard line, right? So special teams. And then a 3 and out, and the defense comes through. And then a punt, they punt, and Micah Pittman returns for about 10 yards and gets a face mask call. So special teams again. And then touchdown by Travis. I think it was the one to Johnny Wilson, right? Yeah, that was the one. That was the one to Johnny Wilson, right? Yeah. So that right there encapsulates how we're playing right now. Offense, defense, special teams, all complementing each other. Field position, opportunistic defense, and executing on offense and converting opportunities.
Well, another thing I think we've seen, Mark, is this team has thrown a knockout punch early, right? We saw against Miami a methodical drive to end that half and make it 31-3, I believe, going into halftime at Miami. We saw the same thing again at the end of the first half of this game. FSU goes 12 plays, 60 yards. Fitzgerald makes a field goal. He made 3 actually, but only one of them.
I was going to say, is that 12 plays? Does that count the 3 field goal attempts?
Well, listen, he's got to have a lot more confidence coming just out of that one series. But they go up to 24-3, and really at the half, and really it's kind of a moot point. I mean, they did come out and score 2 more touchdowns, I believe, in the third quarter, but just really a dominant effort. But just sliding over to the offense for a little bit. FSU ran at will. Trey Benson had another huge game. But what they really did a great job of is when Syracuse packed the box, they got a couple of one-on-one situations to Malik McLean, who just buried that guy with a great stiff arm, and then Johnny Wilson was just too much for the corner. But talk a little bit about Mike's game plan and the first half, particularly on offense.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the structure of their defense, they run that 3-5-3. And so you got those 8 guys hovering around the ball, plus the safeties were really kind of, trying to get active in an effort to stifle the run, which obviously they didn't do a great job of. But, I think it was a smart thing that we go trips and isolate a receiver on one side, and they're just trying to crowd, just the overall structure of their defense, just trying to crowd that box. And it was a really good game plan because we didn't throw it deep very often. I think Tate Rodemaker probably had like 3 or 4 deep balls, but that was really it. I don't think Jordan tried to throw the ball over 25 yards. So throwing the ball on the perimeter, we threw a lot of screens, tight end screens, running back screens, wide receiver screens, RPOs, because that's what those 2 touchdowns were. They're basically zone runs that Jordan picked. That's why that ball looks so – it fluttered out there, the one I think it was to McLean, because he was just trying to throw it as quick as he could as he got the snap and give some kind of little bit of run fake, just throw it out there and just get it to him as quick as he could. And Malik made a great play with the stiff arm and the catch and the run. So yeah, they're going to crowd everything within, in that box. I mean, throwing it out to the perimeter like that really quick and let our skill guys make plays. I think that's obviously made a lot of sense, and it made them have to overcorrect a little bit, and that just really opened up things for the run.
Yeah, well, listen, you mentioned skill guys and running and receiving. 40 carries between 8 players, 230 yards. Of course, the star of the game was Trey Benson, 18 carries for 163 yards, 9.1 yards per average.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
yeah, and listen, the guy at times seems like he can't be tackled. You did have a little bit more concentrated effort with Jordan, 5 carries for 21 yards. Did not see as much, or Toafili was not as successful as he has been, 4 for 9. But certainly you saw, you had C.J. Campbell with 5 carries. Trayshawn Ward got back into action, 5 carries for 13 yards. And listen, once again, the offensive line and tight ends dominated blocking.
They did a great job.
And we'll get to the receivers in a second, but just talk about that run game, both the running backs and the offensive line who played phenomenal again. I don't even think they gave up a sack tonight. But just talk about the offensive line and the rushing game.
Well, again, the way they run their defense with all those, those 5 guys kind of in and out of the box, in and out of the line of scrimmage. I was glad to see us run a lot more zone. I think the zone kind of handles that a lot better than, blocking down and countering and, guys running through gaps and stuff. We still ran the counter some, but a lot more zone, a lot more outside zone. I know we started out the game with that. I think Benson's first big run was a double tight end wing outside zone play, which is the play pretty much Pitt ran all last week and just absolutely ran. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're going to copy Pitt's game plan. And we're just going to stack the box and just run through them. And we were a little more versatile than that. But all that being said, look, the reason that Trey Benson runs like that is because he's getting into the line of scrimmage and the receivers and the running back and the offensive line, they're staying on blocks. I mean, they're engaging guys and they're finally starting to knock guys off the ball. But the better part of it to me is they're running their feet and they're staying engaged on guys. And then, if you guys are trying to tackle them with an arm and an offensive lineman is pushing on you, I mean, it's easier for him to run through it. Now, Trey is obviously a very strong runner, very, very powerful, hard to bring down. But you got to give a lot of credit to the line tight ends and wide receivers for the way they engage and stay engaged during their blocks. And that's where big runs really come from.
Yeah, one of the things that has struck me over the course of the last couple of weeks is I remember Mike Norvell talking about going into the season that we would see players that would continue to develop throughout the season. A lot of people think you are who you are when you start your season, and you and I know that's not true. Players continue to get better. They get more experience. They become smarter, more competitive, all those things. Probably no more position has shown that than wide receiver and tight end. Listen, they completed 25 passes tonight, I believe is what it was. 25 completed passes. 12 different receivers caught balls, Mark. I don't think we saw this coming in this year. We thought it would be Johnny Wilson, Micah Pittman, Ontario Wilson, and maybe Cam McDonald. It has certainly turned into much more than that. Once again, a different receiver led us in receptions, Malik McClain, and of course, Ja'Kai Douglas led the receivers in yardage with 43. Just talk a little bit about the development of the skill positions as it seems to be consistent now, right? I mean, things are getting validated on a weekly basis for this football team.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me because you're right. It's like it's plug and play with whoever's in there. It seems there's and there's the separation between the first team guys and the second or third team guys that we run out there. I don't know that they necessarily see it like that, but there's not a lot of drop off, and each guy brings a special set of skills, and the coaching staff seems to be real attuned to get what they want. I mean, Micah Pittman and Ja'Kai Douglas running those crossing routes and making catches away from their body, in traffic. Those 2 guys are pretty brave. You've got the tall guys. You got Malik and Portier.
Yeah, Portier.
Johnny Wilson. Pokey, on the outside, making plays down the field and blocking really well. So yeah, it's interesting to me how they've all just kind of elevated their level of play incrementally throughout really the last couple of years and specifically this season. together. No one guy's really just absolutely just separated. It seems to be a different guy every week, and that's really what you want as a coach. That way they can't zero in or scheme to any one player. You got to pay attention to the whole field. I mean, well, how many did you say? How many guys caught a pass? 18?
No, 12.
12. I mean,
12 caught 25 passes. So
right, including Jordan Travis, right? So 3 guys actually threw a pass. So
we got Wyatt Richter throwing a touchdown pass.
Wyatt Richter throwing a touchdown pass. Yeah, I mean, so that's I mean, look, again, I'm not going to take winning for granted, and I'll never will again, especially after the last couple of years. But we haven't played great teams, but I'm going to tell you something, I don't care who you play. When you're playing this well and executing, it's a sight to behold. And when Mike says has fun, he loves coaching this team. Obviously, I love watching him.
Yeah, well, they are having a lot of fun right now because they're doing a lot of butt kicking. Listen, the win improves them to 7-3. They finish 5-3 in the ACC and can do no worse than a tie for second in the Atlantic, which I think probably exceeds all our expectations, to be honest. They have a legitimate shot with Louisiana and Florida coming up at a 9-win season. Obviously, they're going to exceed my expectations there, which I'm very glad to. Sometimes it's good to be wrong, right, Mark? So
in this case, for sure.
Yeah. So listen, FSU is probably the hottest team in the ACC, in my opinion, right now at 7-3 and 3 wins. Do you believe they are as good as Clemson, NC State, and or UNC at this point in the season?
Big Mike, go Noles, baby. Listen, I was sitting there thinking as I'm watching these scores roll across, I'd love to play Clemson again right now with the full defense that we got now. I'd love to play Wake Forest and NC State again the way we're playing.
Yeah, Wake Forest.
I will say this, North Carolina, obviously they can put a lot of points on the board. They got a great quarterback, and I'm sure that'd be a great challenge. I mean, I don't know that I would bet against FSU right now against anybody in the league. I mean, I'm not saying we're elite by any stretch, but not like a playoff caliber team. But in the league right now, I don't think there's anybody playing better than FSU.
Well, obviously FSU's done with their ACC part of the schedule, and obviously this is our first impressions. We'll have several weeks to think about this because they do have 2 games left, and a bowl games, so 3 games left. But what kind of message do you think Mike Norvell and his team sent to the league this year?
Well, obviously, to pay attention, it's time to pay attention to FSU again. And I just think people weren't scared of the arrow on the helmet anymore, the spear on the helmet. We're slowly getting back to where that's gonna, people can start respecting that spear again. Yeah. And that to me is really all you can ask. I mean, they know they're gonna have to bring their A game, where in the last couple of years it hasn't been the case.
Wow, it's hard. I mean, Jordan Travis, I just saw the numbers, 21-23.
Yeah.
What a night for him.
3 touchdown passes, a touchdown run, a touchdown reception, over 80% completion rate.
91% completion percentage. Listen, 91? Yeah, and this was the 6th best pass defense in America coming into the game. Yeah. Syracuse. It's unbelievable what they're doing. And but yeah, listen, 5th consecutive rush game with over 200 yards rushing. Obviously, that's hard for any team to beat, and we'll get every team left on FSU's schedule. They'll get their attention for sure. So, listen, a dominant win, 7-3, 5-3 in the ACC, kind of knock your way up in that pecking order for bowl games. Not that I'm not sure the team is worried about that, but it's something I think we like to think about. But yeah, listen, a dominant win, Mark, and just to finish off as we get ready to leave, and of course, Mark and I will be back tomorrow night with Kez McCorvey for Seminole Sidelines, and Arya Masudi will be back with us. He will not have basketball duty for Florida State, so he'll be back in the studio with us, and we'll have a full show. But just your final thoughts on tonight's big win for Florida State.
Well, it was great to see us build off of the last 2 weeks and continue playing at a high level. we all were a little concerned about maybe a letdown after the emotional win on the road last week against in-state rival and all the patting on the back that we all gave them, and rightfully so. So now moving forward, take care of business with Louisiana and go win the state championship. And it's all right there in front of us. And it's really exciting. And I can't wait. I don't want to wish my life away, but I can't wait for these next 3 weeks.
Yeah, we are now 13 days away from 12 days away from the last game of the season against Florida. And listen, the Orange Crush part of the schedule is getting orange crushed. Big win over Miami, big win over Syracuse, and a big game against Florida coming up in 2 weeks. But first, you got Louisiana coming in here next Saturday. We'll have a little bit on Louisiana tomorrow night on our Seminole Sideline show, which will air live at 6 p.m. on YouTube. We appreciate everybody joining us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night. And then, of course, Aria, Roberto, and Kurt will be back with First and Knoll on Monday or Tuesday, and we'll get rolling towards Louisiana as the week goes on with practice reports and all those kind of good things. But we appreciate you joining Mark and I for First Impressions, and hope you'll join Mark, Kez, Aria, and myself tomorrow night for Seminole Sidelines at 6 p.m. on the Osceola YouTube channel. Enjoy the win. FSU 38-3 over Syracuse to improve to 7-3 on the season.
Go Noles!